a little over 200 miles. North Korea recently threatened retaliation over what it called South Korean drone flights across the border. Seoul denied operating drones during the time specified. North Korea's ruling Workers' Party is currently gearing up for its 5-yearly Congress. The huge event could see leader Kim Jong-un's declaration of a hostile two-state system on the Korean peninsula added to the party constitution.
Senate Democrats promised not to vote on a spending bill that funds the Department of Homeland Security. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman says he can't allow himself to be responsible for a government shutdown.
Our entire military won't be paid again. I can't ever support that. I absolutely hope we can engage. In a debate and make some of the kinds of common sense reforms on ICE.
A court victory for the Trump administration, freeing ICE agents from protest restrictions in Minnesota.
A federal appeals court siding with the Trump administration Monday in a ruling that blocked federal ICE agents from using pepper spray and tear gas on protesters in the state. The 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals putting a lower court ruling on hold. The Trump administration argued the initial ruling endangered immigration officers and public safety. A group of residents filed a lawsuit in December alleging officers were violating their First Amendment rights at protests. After the death of anti-ICE protester Alex Pretti by a U.S. Customs and Border Protection agent Saturday, the ACLU is urging the court to restore the initial restrictions. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
Last week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney criticized the United States in a speech that received a standing ovation. He called on, quote, middle powers to come together since he thought the U.S. wasn't on his side anymore after President Trump cut ties last year. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he was in the room when the president made a phone call to the prime minister yesterday.
Very aggressively walking back some of the unfortunate remarks he made at Davos. And Sean, I'm not sure what the prime minister was thinking. Of course, Canada depends on the U.S. There's much more north-south trade than there could ever be east-west trade.
Christian persecution around the world is increasing at an alarming rate, but an author and biblical scholar says religious freedom in the U.S. is under attack as well. Steve Jordahl reports.
There's an obvious difference between Christians dying for their faith in countries like North Korea, Somalia, and Nigeria, and Christians being yelled at for their faith at a Baptist church in Minnesota, for example. But Alex McFarland of Exploring the Word on AFR says there's a direct line between the two, and now is the time to stop religious and political extremists from bridging the gap.
The time to protect religious freedom in the United States is now.
He says the main protection of American Christians is the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And while it's been protection enough for most Americans for 250 years, it's not protected all of us.
I believe America is already a country of particular concern because while most Christians in America will never face physical violence, America is already a place of intense persecution against Christians in the classroom.
And while recent elections have strengthened our religious freedom, it was only 2 or 3 years ago that all of us, if we spoke out on certain platforms, were being censored.
Already in the public square, we are a nation of what can only be called viewpoint discrimination and viewpoint suppression.
McFarland says those days are only an election away from coming back, and he's calling our pastors, especially those who have so far been silent, to stand in the gap.
Pastors can preach on anything. At some point young in the ministry, they promised themselves that they would never use the pulpit to say or do anything political. That is very naive and frankly very unbiblical.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
Welcome to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve. Senior Pastor of First Baptist Church in Texarkana, Texas. Now, here's Pastor Jeff.
Well, good Tuesday morning and welcome to Real Truth for today. Pastor Jeff Schreve here. It is cold and snowy and icy in Texarkana, Texas, as it is in so many other places around the country. Our hearts go out to people who have lost their lives, the families of those who have lost their lives in this horrific cold weather storm. So much ice, more ice than snow. You know, we can handle the snow, but the ice is what's such a problem. And then people losing power and trees falling on houses, and the ice is it's just a deadly situation there with branches popping off. And I helped a guy on Sunday who had a tree fall in his yard on his house, big tree, and so we were helping him pull off branches and things like that. But I made it in today. My worship pastor, Quinn Stanfill, was kind enough. He's got a 4-wheel drive truck. I couldn't get out of the driveway, but he brought me in today and wanted to hit the airwaves live. We at American Family Radio don't like to play things that are repeat. We want to be live, and today we're going to talk about what is going on in our nation. It seems like all eyes are on Minnesota and what happened over the weekend with the death of Alex Pretti on Saturday, and ice, not the ice on your trees, but the ice officers. I wanted to start off with this scripture, Isaiah 59, verses 12 and following. For our transgressions are multiplied before you, and our sins testify against us. For our transgressions are with us, and we know our iniquities, transgressing and denying the Lord, and turning away from our God, speaking oppression and revolt, conceiving in and uttering from the heart lying words. Justice is turned back, and righteousness stands far away, for truth has stumbled in the street, and uprightness cannot enter. Yes, truth is lacking. We call this program Real Truth for Today, and we do our best. I do my best to what I share is truth. Now, sometimes it's opinion of, hey, here's the situation. This is how I see it. And good and godly people can disagree on certain things, especially things about theology, eschatology, Calvinism, things like that. But when we see what's going on in our country, especially in Minnesota, we have to pause and say, what is the deal here? What is at the heart of this issue? I ran across this stat, said 23% of ICE arrests are in Texas, and 2.2% of the total are in Minnesota. And yet, what do we see in Minnesota? We see violence off the chain. The mostly peaceful protests have ended up in 2 people getting shot and killed. And you ask yourself the question, why? Well, Minnesota is the hotbed of fraud. Some have said up to $9 billion. Bishop Jackson told me last week, he said they think now it's $19 billion. Well, if you can create enough firestorm with the ICE agents and create this narrative that the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys, and call evil good and good evil, then you get people that aren't looking at the fraud or talking about the fraud. And so all those things come into play. Now, to help me with this discussion is my good friend Jenna Ellis. Jenna in the morning. You heard Jenna just in the last program, and she has kindly said I'll stay on to talk more about it. So Jenna, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Pastor Jeff. Always great to be with you.
Well, so you in Florida have been immune to all this cold.
Well, yes, comparatively with what the rest of the country is, but compared to what we're used to here in Florida, it's still pretty cold. So we actually had a little bit of what looked like frost this morning when I got up before my radio program, and it's supposed to get down into the 20s and 30s this week. So unfortunately, yeah, we're going to be cold for Florida.
Well, yeah, that's Florida's normally you guys get all the hurricane stuff. You don't typically get the cold weather stuff. But glad that you came on today. Well, Jenna, I mean, everybody's talking about what's going on in Minnesota, talking about the ICE agents. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. I look at things. I'm a black and white kind of guy, and so I just say to myself, it's horrific. It's tragic that Renee Good and Alex Pretti have died in their encounter with ICE agents, but you shouldn't have been there. Not to excuse anything that happened, and really the Alex Pretti thing looks very bad, like those guys got spooked and they shot. But I always give the benefit of the doubt to the law enforcement officers, because I know how hard it is to do that job, especially when people are screaming in your ear and spitting on you and yelling at you and cussing you and putting their bodies in your way. These guys are not robots. They're human beings, and they want to go home at the end of the day, and they don't know what your intentions are. So give me your hot take on what happened on Saturday, especially with Alex Pretti.
Well, as I reminded listeners on my program this morning, we have to first understand our principles and how the law works before we apply the law to the facts of a given situation. So I think a lot of people have rushed to either justify law enforcement because they rightly back law enforcement. They back what ICE is doing in terms of enforcing against illegal immigration, their for mass deportation, all of that. And then, of course, the left, just because they're against Donald Trump no matter what he does, they're rushing to say that this was unjustified. So at the outset, this shouldn't be political. And so the opinion that anyone has on this situation, if you feel one way or the other just because of your politics, then you're not being principled. And so here in Florida, for example, we have what's called a HALO law, which is really excellent. And it basically gives a 25-foot barrier between an individual and law enforcement, that if they come within, an individual comes within 25 feet of a law enforcement officer, which would have included ICE, anyone, and they say, back away or, drop your weapon or whatever, and that individual doesn't comply, then immediately they've broken the law and can go and be disarmed or handcuffed or even arrested, whatever. So if Minnesota had a similar law, it might have actually prevented this tragedy because it wouldn't have escalated to the point that it did. So, I've reviewed all of the angles and everything that are going around on social media. And, first and foremost, it isn't illegal for Alex Pretti to have been there. It's not illegal to bring a gun to a protest. It's not illegal to bring a camera to videotape officers. The point that it becomes illegal is if you obstruct law enforcement, if you are getting in their face, if you are impeding, if you are inciting violence, in a number of other laws that could have been broken. And so to me, the analysis turns on not just his presence there, because he had every right to be there, but what his actions actually were leading up to that moment. And then if it's established that he committed a crime, he impeded law enforcement, obstructed, any of those things, then the question becomes, was the law enforcement officer justified in using deadly force? And that can become, a really tricky thing, Jeff, because, as you mentioned, these people are human beings. They're making these split-second decisions when these things, if and when they ever go to trial. Then it's like everybody can analyze the split-second thing and slow-mo the video. That didn't happen in real life. And so in that sense, I'm like you. I give the benefit of the doubt to law enforcement because they're making these snap decisions. If the citizen, like Alex Pretti, if he had broken a law, then I would absolutely side with law enforcement and say, yes, it was justified.
Well, and so I had an encounter back and forth on social media with somebody, and I said, my attitude, just like the Ashley Babbitt thing, it's like, okay, that was horrific. She didn't pose a threat to this guy. The bottom line is she shouldn't have been there. Why do you want to put yourself and insert yourself in a situation where you could get hurt, you could get killed? So if you, if one of my own children goes and plays chicken with a train and ends up getting hit and killed, I don't blame the train. It's like, why were you there? And so that's a problem for me, Jenna, is I just think, okay, just back it up. You had no business being there. Renee Good had no business doing what she was doing. Why are you impeding law enforcement when they're carrying out just laws? Now, if they're unjust laws, Tim Walz likes to say they're the Gestapo. Well, the Gestapo was carrying out unjust laws. If you're carrying out a just law, then let those law enforcement guys do what they do.
Well, the difference, I think, between the Ashley Babbitt situation and both Renee Good and Alex Pretti is that Ashley Babbitt was already inside the Capitol building, absolutely trespassing. Yes, the Capitol, belongs to we the people, but you can't just go into any federal building when it's closed and you're not allowed to be a visitor there. So she was breaking a federal law at the moment that she was killed. And while that was a tragic situation, I've said for a long time that, not all of these J6ers were unjustly, they weren't unjustly targeted in terms of having due process and charged. They weren't unjustly charged. And so while it was a tragedy, absolutely, I think you're absolutely right. In her situation, she should not have been there. She wasn't just, in D.C. by the Capitol where Alex Pretti was on the street. There's no indication he was there just simply having a presence illegally like Ashley Babbitt was. Now, Renee Good, taking her car, she was there. It's come out as an agitator. That changes the circumstances a little bit. While she may have had the right to be driving in her car down the highway, she was there for the purpose intentionally to obstruct. So that also changes the situation. So I don't know yet whether Alex Pretti initially, whether he was there and it was established that he was there to obstruct and that he was committing a crime just by his presence there. So I think that we need more of that information before we can make a determination. But I agree with you in principle. It's never a good idea unless you're literally, a journalist for Fox News or something trying to capture, and you're wearing the big thing that says press, I'm not involved, to even be around this situation. There's nothing good that comes of trying to get in law enforcement's face, videotaping them just to post on social media and rant against them. So I agree with you that for those reasons, that's never a good idea.
Well, and then you have people like David Muir, who works for ABC News, and he presented on Saturday the false narrative. It's been proven false about the 5-year-old boy detained by ICE, just constantly trying to paint ICE as the bad guys. And then the people they're trying to arrest, illegal aliens, and especially many of them that are dangerous, as the good guys. And people buying that, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, and this is why facts matter, and why, Jeff, I think it's incumbent upon us, especially as Christians, and then we build our conservative perspective from there, to not be caught up into all of the political narrative and immediately either defend or be against one or the other side, just dependent on politics, because facts matter. The law matters, and there are always nuances to these situations. And, as Proverbs says, the first to present his case appears right until someone else comes and proves him wrong by giving another perspective, right? So we have to be very circumspect and non-emotional in these situations to say, hey, but I'm going to reserve judgment until I see all the facts and I know more than just what's being posted on social media.
Yes, very good. Well, we're talking to Jenna Ellis. You're listening to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Schreve here on this cold, cold day. We'll be right back after the break.
Without even seeing them show up, I could feel like the darkness.
Jamie Sanchez is another Christian business proprietor who has been targeted for his faith. His Drip Cafe was opened to serve and help the homeless of downtown Denver.
We believe sex outside of marriage and homosexuality is a sin in God's eyes. And the enemy and his minions decided to use that as a platform.
Jesus told us persecution would come.
I would see them, just the rage and the hate. I pictured them doing that at the foot of the cross to Jesus. And I just remembered what he said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." And so I had to position my heart that way.
The Jamie Sanchez story is one of the videos of the Impact series at stream.afa.net.
It's been a crazy, crazy ride.
See Jamie's story and much more at stream.afa.net.
To sharpen the biblical worldview of Christians and to share the good news of Jesus Christ. That is the mission of the Christian Worldview radio program. I'm host David Wheaton, inviting you to join us this Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, as we discuss all matters of life and faith from a decidedly biblical perspective. The Christian Worldview, Saturday mornings at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, right here on American Family Radio.
We don't have to be like the 10 that said it can't be done, it's too big, the giants are too big. We need to be like Joshua and Caleb and say, you know what, there are giants. This is a massive problem. When you have a nation that is ignorant of the principles that produce a free society, start where you can. It's the only way I know. It's a little bit at a time.
Join Walker Wildman and Rick Green as they tackle today's issues from a biblical and a constitutional perspective. At the Core, 1 p.m. Central weekdays on AFR.
You may have heard about the AFA Activate Summit, but did you know AFA Activate is not just limited to a once-a-year event? If you're serious about radically impacting your Christian worldview so you and your family can become active world changers, this is for you. AFA Activate is an in-depth training course that you can start anytime in the comfort of your home, online, or by DVD. We've got 13 of the best professors, including Abraham Hamilton III, Bert Harper, and Joseph Parker, who will take you through 18 Bible-based sessions. Through it all, they'll break down the issues that AFA deals with every single day, so you can increase your understanding of the sanctity of life, marriage and family, religious liberty, and stewardship. And we don't just throw it at you and hope you retain it. We make sure you have the resources you need to apply what you learn, along with full access to AFA Stream for a year so you can access even more information. Go to activate.afa.net for all the details.
This is Real Truth for Today. Podcasts of the program are available on the podcast page at afr.net. Now, back to Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Welcome back to the program. Pastor Jeff here talking to Jenna Ellis. We're talking about what's going on in Minnesota and the death of Alex Pretti. That happened on Saturday. As no doubt you've seen the video where he's surrounded by ICE agents. He seems to be resisting arrest. Things aren't going well, and he ends up getting shot and killed. Jenna, I wanted to get your take on this. So Barack Obama feels the need to insert himself in this, and this was from January 25th. The killing of Alex Pretti is a heartbreaking tragedy. It should also be a wake-up call to every American, regardless of party, that many of our core values as a nation are increasingly under attack. I would disagree with that. Federal law enforcement and immigration agents have a tough job, and it's made tougher when you interfere with them. But Americans expect them to carry out their duties in a lawful, accountable way, I would agree with that, and to work with rather than against state and local officials to ensure public safety. How can you work with state and local officials when they refuse to work with you?
And I'm sorry, Jeff, I lost you just for that last part.
Oh, okay. So he says that it's the the job of federal law enforcement officers to work with rather than against state and local officials to ensure public safety. Well, I'd say, yes, that's true, but you have a governor and a mayor who've said, we will not work with you. We're going to basically work against you, and that creates all the problems. That's why you don't have this situation in Texas like you do in Minnesota. You don't have it in Florida like you do in Minnesota, because local law enforcement is working with ICE, not against ICE. So how do you see that?
Yeah, well, of course. And, when it comes to federal law and enforcement of federal law, ICE can be there regardless of whether Tim Walz and, Mayor Frey and all of them agree or not. They can't say, this is a sanctuary city and we are going to not allow you to execute federal law. That's why federal law, there's the supremacy clause, and those governors would actually be violating federal law and assisting in breaching federal law if they try to do that. And so what's going on in Minnesota is really tragic. And I said on my program this morning that this is kind of shades of 2020 as well, when you saw some of those violent protests and other things that Trump ultimately had to either threaten to or actually send in the National Guard and among other things to these blue states, because their leadership and elected officials were not abiding by federal law, and they were allowing these agitators and, frankly, terrorists to commit violent crimes without actually having the law enforced. And so what people need to know about the Insurrection Act, which is what people in 2020 were suggesting that Trump impose and trigger, is that it doesn't require, when there is this kind of unrest or riots or rebellion, it doesn't require a president to get the permission of a governor or a mayor before using federal resources to come in and quell that rebellion. And so similarly, Trump doesn't have to have the permission of Walz or anybody else if there are riots. Now, ICE's presence was there before that, and that's now kind of sparking these riots. But because this is going on and there's civil unrest, absolutely, I think that Trump would be justified in invoking the Insurrection Act. But previously, when this has been invoked, going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, we didn't have all of these radical leftist Democrats that were in office. The governors and the mayors were working with the president, saying, "Yeah, we don't want civil unrest in the United States." So again, people just need to understand that this is very much squarely the fault of Walz and Mayor Frey for not helping ICE and not enforcing the law in their own states. But isn't it interesting, Jeff, that we're talking about all of this, and somehow now we're not talking about Somali daycare fraud, right?
Right. Well, that's exactly right. It's like, hey, I don't want you to, I don't care what kind of unrest I create in my state. I just want you to quit talking about the fact that I was no doubt complicit in the fraud. Either that or I'm just such a buffoon and such a terrible manager. I mean, the whistleblowers have said, of course he knew about this. He's known about this for a long time. He just turned a blind eye to it. And so, I also look at it this way too, Jenna, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but the masterminds behind the left, they want to create so much chaos and pin it on Trump and the Republicans so that at the midterms, people are like, well, I can't vote for them. Look what they did. And you have more and more people believing this lie that the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys. So, and if Republicans support the bad guys, the ICE agents, well, they're bad and I'm not going to vote for them.
Of course. I mean, this is a key election year. It's not a presidential election year, but it's very key. And if Democrats get control of just the House, they don't even need control of the Senate. If they get control of just the House, they are going to have impeachment after impeachment, and they're going to basically try to effectively neuter the rest of Trump's term. And that's why we're seeing this. I mean, again, it's shades of 2020, where they want to manipulate the voting base based on the media headlines instead of actually putting forth policy reasons why they think their candidate should win. The Democrats are never actually saying, I'm the best candidate because.
Right.
They're just saying, look at those Republicans. How dare you vote for them? And if you vote for them, you're voting for evil, and you should be ashamed of yourselves and all of those things. So we need to absolutely combat that narrative.
Amen. Well, Jenna, I know you got other things to do. I appreciate so much you coming on today. And so thank you, and thank you for your insights.
Thank you, Pastor Jeff.
All right. Well, that was Jenna Ellis from Jenna Ellis in the Morning, and I've gotten to know her very well, and just a wonderful, wonderful young lady, and so very smart and just wise in how she sees things. Well, yeah, so what's the end game? What's the, you back it up and you say, okay, let's not, the old expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. That seems to be what is happening here. So you have to back up and see the forest. What is the end game here? Well, the end game is Republicans are bad, Trump is bad, ICE is bad, law and order is bad, but they won't say it like that. Obviously, they say Trump is bad, but they don't say law and order is bad. They say these guys are lawless. So Tim Walz actually said that ICE agents aren't really law enforcement, and this was him on an or Ben Shapiro playing some clips and commenting on it.
Walz is building an entire permission structure for violence against officers. That's what he's doing. Here he was over the weekend saying we should not call these people law enforcement.
Do I have any confidence Donald Trump will do the right thing? No, I don't have a lot of confidence Donald Trump will do the right thing. I do have a lot of confidence that the majority of the American people will do the right thing. And I think there cannot be very many people across this country looking right now, after all the reporting that's been done, after everything that's been said, under the pretense that they are here about immigration reform, and quit referring to these people as law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. We have law enforcement who do an incredible job. And to listen to Greg Bovino denigrate the work of our people who are out there cleaning up their mess, no, I don't have a lot of confidence that he himself will do it. But here's what I do have confidence in. There's a whole lot of Republicans, for whatever reason, cannot find their spine. But they might find the ability to know that they're not going to win another election as long as they live unless they stand up for what's right and stand up for the rule of law and stand up for human decency, and that's the moment.
Okay, they're literally not standing up for the rule of law, Tim Walz and company. He is literally saying, get your agents out of here while they enforce federal law. And when he says things like they're not law enforcement, what do you think he is saying to protesters? What do you think he's saying? When he says they're not law enforcement, he's saying, okay, well, if they're not, then what are they? Then I guess they're terrorists? Then I guess that they are lawbreakers because they're wandering around committing crimes against other American citizens? What is he saying? He is granting a permission structure for all of this.
Yeah, Tim Walz is poison. He's total poison in my estimation, and he is creating this. And so this is what Sheriff Grady Judd, who is the sheriff of Polk County in Florida, this is what he had to say about his officers and ICE agents.
I'm telling you, folks, they're trying to demonize ICE. We work with them hand in glove every day. They are wonderful, dedicated, hardworking law enforcement officers, and they're not getting crap thrown at them in the state of Florida. They're not ginning up people that are not happy in the state of Florida because we're not putting them in that position in the state of Florida. And this same environment could be in every one of those states if the state had cooperated. But instead, you've elected a bunch of people there, governors primarily, House and Senate members, mayors, city commissioners, county commissioners, that said, hey, we're going to let these criminals that are here illegally committing crime against the people of the state of California or Minnesota or wherever, we're going to allow them to come back out into the community and commit more crime against you rather than turn them over to our federal partners. That's why you're seeing all this scrum all over the nation.
So that was Sheriff Grady Judd from Polk County in Florida. He's exactly right. And so it's not it's not hard to understand. Now, what happened on Saturday with Alex Pretti, that looks like that was a total breakdown. That never should have happened from what I can tell, but you got to give people due process. But here's the thing. The law enforcement officers, as I have stated, they're not robots. They're human beings. I think I mentioned last week, we have a thing in Texarkana called the policing experience. And I was privileged to be asked to be a part of this, where you go through some police training. And one of the things that they did, I did a simulation where I'm the officer, I come and pull somebody over, and they have all sorts of different situations. I pull somebody over, and then I have to interact with this person. I go into a house where there's a kidnapping, and I have to interact and, draw my weapon, not draw my weapon. What am I going to do? Oh, in some of the scenarios, you didn't draw your weapon, now they shot you, now you're dead. In other scenarios, somebody goes and pulls something out of his jacket pocket, and I thought it was a gun. I shot the guy and ended up being a cell phone. And I remember the police chief, Kevin Schutte, he said, now you're going to prison because you just shot that guy. And I said, well, he shouldn't have done that. I don't know what he's pulling out of his vest pocket. And he said, yeah, now you see what we go through as law enforcement officers. So I was remembering the movie Sully. Do you remember that? Where Sully landed the plane, lost all his engines, landed the plane in the Hudson River, and they tried to pin that on him like he was an incompetent pilot. And they said, we ran this in simulation and we were able to land at the airport. You landed in the ocean or in the Hudson River, and you lost this, this plane that cost, I don't know how much they cost, $500 million or whatever it cost. And he said, how many times did your pilots run through that in simulation? And they didn't want to say, but they had to say it was multiple times. And he said, we had to do it in real time. He said, anyone can let them do it over and over and over again. They can figure out how, okay, I would have done it differently. He said, we're doing this in real time. These officers are doing this in real time. And with the Pretti thing, it seems to me that somebody heard a gunshot, they got spooked, and they started firing their weapons. Those guys wish, no doubt, in any kind of a shooting like that, those officers are not there to do that. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to draw their guns. They didn't get up in the morning saying, well, I hope we can shoot somebody today. And so it's horrific what happened. It's horrific for that man's family. It's horrific for the officers involved because they didn't want to do that. That officer that ended up shooting Renee Good, he didn't want that to happen. But as I said, those are people. And people, when you're put in a situation where you can start fearing for your life, you can respond in such a way that backing it up and replaying it. Yeah, your armchair quarterbacking. Anybody can do that. And my attitude has always been, hey, if you think you can do it so well, you sign up for that job because it's a very difficult job. And that's just in the best of circumstances, it's a difficult job. They're not working with grandma to get a cat out of a tree. They're working with some bad actors to get them out of the country. Those people are here illegally, and they're not just self-deporting. And so, to have others interfere with that just makes that job that's already hard so much harder. And then people lashing out at them and calling them names and spitting on them and protesting against them and screaming in their face. Good night. We're in a situation. Justice is turned back, and righteousness stands far away. For truth has stumbled in the street, and uprightness cannot enter. Yes, truth is lacking. what we're seeing is evidence of the last days. Well, you're listening to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Schreve here. When we come back from the break, we'll be taking your calls. 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. I'd love to hear from you, what you think about what's been going on. And so give me a call with your question, with your comment, and let's talk.
As we watch world events unfold and fulfill Scripture, it's hard to believe anyone could doubt God and His Word are real. And yet there are so many who either question or completely refuse to believe it. The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that hits the doubt head-on with evidence that proves God is real and His Word is the ultimate authority. Watch it anytime and invite others to watch with you. Just visit stream.afa.net. That's stream.afa.net.
The mission of American Family Association is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of American culture and give aid to the church here and abroad in its task of fulfilling the Great Commission. Further, AFA believes this ministry, as well as everything in the heavens and on the earth, belongs to God, and AFA's role is that of a trusted manager.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
If you are 65 or older, you know this, inflation is hitting everyone hard right now, especially when it comes to health care. Over the last 10 years, healthcare costs have skyrocketed by, get this, 230%. If you have Medicare Parts A and B, you know there are still out-of-pocket expenses like deductibles and co-payments, and they really add up. But here's some good news. MediShare 65 Plus is designed to fill in those gaps and help protect you from rising healthcare costs. At only $99 per month up to age 75, you get peace of mind at a price you can afford. And MediShare is trusted, too. It's been around 30 years. It's not some big impersonal thing. It's a community of people helping each other, business owners, pastors, retirees. People love it. MediShare 65 Plus just makes sense. To learn more, give them a call. They're great to talk to. They'll offer to pray with you each time you call, too. Call now. 833-45-BIBLE. That's 833-45-BIBLE. 833-45-BIBLE.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
If you'd like to contact Pastor Jeff, email Pastor Jeff at fromhisheart.org. Now, back to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Welcome back to the program, Pastor Jeff. You know, at American Family Radio, we stand for life, we stand for the unborn, and we partner with Preborn, and Preborn partners with us. What is Preborn? Preborn is the direct competition to the abortion industry and the largest provider of free ultrasounds in the United States. And here's the thing, if you let a woman see her baby on ultrasound and hear the heartbeat, a baby's chance of survival is doubled. And mothers start to see this isn't a lump of cells, as I've been told. This is an actual person growing inside of me, and I can't kill my baby. So over the past 20 years, Preborn partner clinics have counseled hundreds of thousands of women considering abortion, and more than 400,000 babies' lives have been saved, and more than 100,000 women have surrendered their lives to Christ. And last year alone, 80,000 women chose life, and over 10,000 women made a commitment to Jesus Christ. So we're asking you to pray and consider partnering with preborn. Your gift of $28 provides one woman seeking an abortion a free ultrasound, and a $140 gift provides 5 free ultrasounds. And then for those that might be in this category, a leadership gift, you could buy an ultrasound machine. $15,000 will buy an ultrasound machine, which will last for 3 to 5 years and do untold amounts of ultrasounds and save so many lives. So you can call 877-616-2396. That's 877-616-2396, or go online at afr.net. Well, we're going to the phone lines as we've been talking about what really the country has been talking about, all eyes on Minnesota because of the ineptitude of their governance under Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. They seem to want this. It seems to me to be a master plan to create such havoc and chaos that people would not dare vote in the midterms for a candidate that has an R by his name. If you support President Trump, therefore you support murder, and all the things that they say, the execution of Renee Good, the execution of Alex Pretti, and it's like ICE agents are just they're starting their day saying, who can I kill today? It's just a sick narrative. It's a sick twisted this idea that evil is good and good is evil, and God says woe to those people who do that. And America is in a bad way, and Christians, we need to pray. I'm talking to myself. I need to pray. We need to pray and ask the God of heaven to intervene in this situation and bring revival. That's the only thing that will save us as a nation. Politics doesn't save us. A politician doesn't save us. But Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world, and He will save and He will heal our land as we call out to Him. Well, we're going to the phone lines at 888-589-8840, and we have Carl on the line from Texas. Carl, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was going to thinking about the spiritual side of what happened to Mr. Pretti, and I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like old Satan, the devil, got another one on his account and then caused more trouble and more chaos with ICE trying to do their job. That's about all I've got.
Yeah. I would agree with you, Carl, and it's horrible. I just got a text from my good friend Darcy Lurch, and his son is a police officer in the Dallas area, and he said, thanks for mentioning Sully, because what people don't realize is, these guys are doing all this stuff in real time, and their adrenaline is pumping, and they don't know, they can't get into the mind and heart of this person that is opposing them. And so if they feel threatened, like they could end up getting shot, it just happens like that, then they're not going home to their families. And, they're going to put their safety above a perpetrator's safety, as you would, as I would, as we would, because they're there enforcing the law. And if we live in a world where the law becomes a crime and crimes become the law, and good is evil and evil is good, and the bad guys are the good guys and the good guys are it's a total bizarro world. It's an upside down world. Nobody can live in that world, and then it just becomes a free for all, and life becomes a gang war, and surely we don't want that. But what did we hear from the left? Abolish the police, defund the police. They wanted to do that, to create chaos. And so I appreciate it, Carl. You're exactly right. It is a spiritual battle. Well, we have Daryl on the line from Texas. Daryl, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Good morning. Yes, I wanted to bring up your 45 points that you'd mentioned before of the goals of the communists.
Yes.
That was written in a book called The Naked Communist, as he exposed the underneath the cover-up of communism. It was by Cleon Skolson, and he was an FBI agent at one time, and I highly encourage people to read that, because it really, up to 1961, it tells the history of Marxism up to 1961 and its involvement in the downfall of China and the conniving and the lying that it is. And I highly encourage everyone that you can get it free PDF online, and I highly encourage everyone to get that insight, because you got to go back to 1961 to realize where we are now. You know, it really is good. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, Daryl. You're exactly right. So the 45 Communist Goals for America by Cleon Skousen, written in 1961. You can you can look at the 45. I just pulled up 45 goals for America, communist goals for America. And so all these things, this is in 1961, and exactly what Daryl's saying. All these things that they were planning to do, they have done. And this is the result of that. So that's a good encouragement to our listeners. So thank you, Daryl. We have David on the line from Florida. David, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Good morning, Pastor. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to caveat off of what you said about policemen don't wake up in the morning thinking about who they're going to kill.
Right.
But these rioters, it's like you go into a backyard and there's a mad dog. Now, you want to calm that mad dog down, and you're hoping the chain doesn't break. But the mad dog's purpose is to destroy you, bite you, devour you if he can. And that's where the police are. They've got a mad dog that does not think clearly, and their mission is to destroy. And the police officer's mission is to bring peace and calm and solution to that problem. And that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with a mad dog, and the police are wanting to try to appease it, and they don't want to hear it.
Right. That's a great way to look at it. Okay, so we saw, and maybe you saw the picture of the ICE officers who had the tip of his finger bitten off. I mean, talking about a mad dog, who does that? But you work these people into a frenzy, and it was just like our last caller, Daryl. This is or Carl, one of the. I got too many names in my head, but one of the last callers, this is a spiritual battle, and the devil is at work. The whole world, 1 John 5:19, the whole world lies in the power of the evil one, and the evil one is at work, and he works these people up. You know, we don't, I've talked about this on the program, you don't hear a lot about people talking about demonic oppression and possession. We talk about mental illness. But these people that scream in the face of law enforcement, some of those people, I would think, if they're not possessed, they're definitely oppressed. They're being pushed by the enemy in these reactions and interactions, because it goes against rationality. It's just like, that is so totally irrational. And what are you doing? You are supporting people who are in this country illegally, and many of them are doing terrible, horrible crimes, and those are the folks you're supporting. You're supporting the Abrega Garcias, the Maryland man, and the news is part of this. It's just sickening, just like the ABC News report of what happened with the 5-year-old boy. Well, they totally made it up to make ICE look bad. It's just maddening.
Can I say something else, Pastor?
Yes, sir.
What I see too is like Cloward and Piven. You cause a lot of confusion, but behind the scenes, there's countries that are trying to destroy us and using our peoples to do it, and that's what I'm seeing also.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, thank you, brother. Thanks for calling in. Well, we have Marco on the line from Texas. Marco, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Hello, Pastor. Thank you for taking my call. I just want to exhort my brothers and sisters to step up, take a leadership position wherever they're at church, at school, at work, at their HOA. I mean, we pray, we meet at church, but this is a call to action. We got to be the light and salt, and we got to take action. A special call to the men. We're missing men and families. The enemy attacks from the beginning of time with Adam and Eve, breaking up the home. We need to step up and stop the divorce, stop being bitter, but be better. Be the better half, not the bitter half. And this is just a call of action. Like, we don't need a majority. One, and God is a majority. I'm just calling up for the next 300 Gideon in the United States or in Texas to become leaders. Lead your families, lead your homes, lead at work, lead wherever you're at. be that light, be that salt. That was it.
Amen.
I love you. Bye.
Hey, thanks, Marco. Great word. Yeah, that's our calling from the Lord, to be salt and light. You know, it's Charlie Kirk that said, salt and light, they change the circumstances. They shine. You put salt on something and you can say, oh, there's salt here. You know, foods taste different when you put the salt in there. And he said, we're supposed to be that to the culture. And we're not doing a very good job if we just kind of blend in with the culture. We have lots of people, lots of Christians don't like to wade in on any of these things. I don't want to get too political. Top of the hour, Alex McFarland, was talking about that. Well, pastors that say, I'm never going to touch on anything that would, quote unquote, be controversial or political. It may make some people mad. Our calling is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. Our calling is to get people focused on what are we to do here. We're to seek the welfare of the city. Luke 19, do business with this until I come. Occupy, as it says in the King James, until I come. We are supposed to make a difference in our land for Jesus Christ. If you call that Christian nationalism, I want our nation to follow the laws of the Lord and to walk in His ways. Why? Because that creates human flourishing. That's a blessing for all. If you want to follow the ways of the Quran and Muhammad and Allah, guess what? You get Gaza. You get oppression. You get bad things. I still remember a statement from Tony Evans. And it's so true. He said, anywhere where the devil is king becomes a garbage dump. And it just does. A life becomes a garbage dump. A community becomes a garbage dump. A state, a nation becomes a garbage dump. Why? Because the devil is a liar and the father of lies, is a murderer. Just all bad things are associated with him. But what do you have in the Lord Jesus Christ? You have blessings untold. You have love and joy and peace and all those good things. Well, we have Lynn on the line from Arkansas. Lynn, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Yeah, all I was going to say is that the problem of noise, that they intentionally create noise. I was in a retail environment at Christmas. There was a lot of noise, babies crying, kids having tantrums because people stay too long. But anyway, I was on a transaction with a woman whose child was totally out of line, and she wouldn't say anything to the child. And it just got to the point where it blocked my brain. I just was stressed. And I was just going to say, I've heard of situations in where they torture people, where they play noise of, like, I think it was like rats squealing or rabbits being killed or something like that. And it's just hard on your brain, and they're in a stressful situation anyway. And so, yeah, I guess, that's another tactic. But anyway, that's all I was going to say.
That's a great point, Lynn. And the standard that the community, Americans hold these officers to, it's like, you don't realize how difficult their job is. If you can do it so well, then why don't you show the rest of us how you would have a perfect score in every one of those scenarios? You wouldn't. You'd go off on people just like that. I know from personal experience, doing the policing experience, when you're put in a situation like that and you have to make those split-second decisions, you're not going to be batting 1,000, because nobody is, because we're flawed individuals. Nathan from Tennessee, I'm sorry we ran out of time, but thank you for calling in. And thanks for listening to Real Truth for Today. So what does all this tell us? It tells us we need to pray. We need to pray for those that are caught up in all this chaos. We need to pray for our officers, pray for President Trump and his administration, Tom Homan and the people involved, Kristi Noem. They need our prayers. We can make a difference. God bless you.